Hello and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fundraising live stream to raise funds for the National Get Organized for an Actual Revolution Tour. My name is Luna. I'm with the National Revolution Tour as well as the Revolution Club in Los Angeles. And this fundraising live stream is happening at a very pivotal time in history. And so this time that's happening right now underscores the need for the mission of the National Get Organized for an Actual Revolution Tour and the Revolution Nothing Less show, and for your financial support. And so the tour, which is called You Think You're Woke, but You're Sleepwalking Through a Nightmare. This system cannot be reformed. It must be overthrown. Get Organized for an Actual Revolution Tour, which is based on and fighting for and fighting to make real the new communism forged by Bob Avakian, the leader of the revolution, and an architect of a new framework for human emancipation. So today is a prelude live stream. Given the unprecedented events of the last week, we're going to be doing this in parts. And so today we're going to get into the situation that we face, the need for this tour, why you should contribute, and most of all, how you can be part of an effort over these next 2 weeks in what will continue to be an intense and volatile situation. So it's going to be raising funds to organize people to tune in into our next live stream, where we'll announce exciting plans for how we see having a big impact for revolution in 2021. So mark it on your calendar. That'll be Sunday, January 24th, 2021. And so right now, as we're beginning and as we're starting this live stream, I really want to encourage you and everyone tuning in, share this live stream, put it up on your Facebook groups, text 5 friends, send the link on Instagram, however you want to do it, and ask people to contribute, most importantly. And as we'll get into today, if you want to see a different world, you're responsible for making that happen. And we're going to flesh that out. And so I do want to call people's attention to the corner box. This is on the screen, which is where you can donate. We have Venmo, we have CashApp. You can go to revcom.us. You can give us a call. You can email us. So again, as people are tuning in, please share this. Please let everyone know that this is happening.
So my name is Annie Day, and I'm also with the National Revolution Tour. And we're going to be co-hosting this together, me and Luna. So, we've got some really exciting people to bring on, so you can hear from, to talk about what the National Revolution Tour has been doing, and and as Luna said, the situation we're in, with some understanding about what's happening and why. So in the early summer, BA said, "Radical change is coming. Will it be emancipating, or will it be enslaving? Will it be revolutionary, or will it be reactionary?" And that captures kind of the theme of what we're going to be getting into today, but also the problem that the Revolution Tour has been working on for the last year or so, is to bring forward the revolutionary resolution of that contradiction. And the National Revolution Tour is on a mission to organize forces for that revolution based on the new communism developed by BA, like Luna said. And we're going to get more into the content, but also the potential impact if this is actually getting out in society in the way it needs to be. So the mission of this tour is to plant a pole throughout society so that people lift their heads out of the do-for-self mentality, out of the anti-scientific ignorance that's so widespread, out of the give it up to God BS that people are told, just get on your knees and hope someone else takes care of the problem. No. The National Revolution Tour is aiming to put real revolution on the map, to break people out of the low dreams, all the ways people are confined to thinking about change within the terms of the system that is causing the problem to begin with. And making that possible, changing how people think, putting revolution on the map. It depends on the people on this tour, on the volunteers, which you'll hear more about as we go. But it also depends on everyone listening, everyone tuning in here today, to actually help this spread so that we reach and have the impact that humanity requires at this time. The revolution is not just some abstract idea. It's a very concrete goal. And there's real people, there's volunteers from across the country who uprooted their lives, who quit their jobs to come to LA. We got here right before the pandemic hit. Again, we'll talk more about that and what we've done in the face of that. But they need support for food, for housing, for PPE, for this beautiful studio that the RNL show broadcasts from regularly, for the equipment, even just to do this live stream, cell phone costs, internet costs, for the basic core of the movement for revolution to function, and not just to function to kind of keep things going, but for this to spread, for this to break out, it needs your support and for you to step in and be part of this. So we are aiming, the National Revolution Tour needs to raise tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And we're going to aim to raise some part of that today. You'll see on the screen, we have a $10,000 goal. And I'm excited to say this number keeps going up just even before we began here today. In the last 2 days, we've raised $2,936 of that goal. So that's a significant place to start, actually. Maybe we should have made the goal higher. No, we've got a lot of work to do. And don't worry, we can excel the goal. Because like I said, we actually have tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars to raise. But this $2,936 comes from, I don't have the exact number, but I think it's like over 30 volunteers, 30 donors, sorry. Some who gave $20, some who gave $50, one who gave $1,000. So this is made up of, a kind of a real leap in people stepping in and contributing. And I'm also excited to announce, to kick this off, that we have just received a significant donation, but I'm excited to kick it off, and we're posing a challenge with it. A significant donation of $3,000. But the donor is contributing it as a matching challenge, which means all of us here today should match that $3,000 plus. So that's on us here in this next hour. And look, we know that in this past year, this global pandemic hit and it's ravaged a lot of people financially. But there's 3 things I want to say about that. One, there's no donation too small. And if you want to see fundamental change, and again, we're going to talk about a lot of this today, what kind of change, how to bring that into being. But if you want to see a different world, that's not going to happen because you stand aside. That's going to happen because you take responsibility and you're part of it. So whether you can give $5 a month, $10, $20 a month, that's significant. And it means you're stepping in and taking responsibility for the revolution. 2, at whatever level you can give, you can be part of asking others. I know in some neighborhoods, people have done penny jars for the revolution, where they get people in their whole building. They put out a jar and have people in their building give whatever change they can, and it adds up. It's significant, and that's part of how we build up networks of the revolution, which both contributes to the revolution and to the National Revolution Tour, but it's also building up the organization that we're going to need to actually make that revolution when the time comes. So this is a significant part of organizing forces for revolution, is doing that through the contributions. And 3, if you're somebody who has not been financially, affected negatively from this pandemic, then you have even more responsibility, not just to give on your own behalf, but to give on behalf of those who would want to see this, but don't have the same financial ability. So I think, and like I said, and like Luna said, in this next 2 weeks, we're going to go all out. Look, it's going to be a crazy time, okay? We have no idea what's going to happen. But I think in this next 2 weeks, given what happened in this last week, we can say it's probably going to be quite volatile. All the more reason to go all out in this 2 weeks to organize to raise funds for this next live stream, Sunday, January 24th. So Luna, why don't you tell people what the plan is for today?
Yes, so for all of you tuning in all across the country, today we have an agenda set out. We're going to start with an interview with Sunsara Taylor, who's the co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show and a co-initiator of Refuse Fascism and a member of the Revolution Tour. And so Sunsara has been a part of working with the editorial board of Refuse Fascism and working to lead a national movement. And she's also been on Pacific Radio Network and on the ground in DC. And then after that, you're going to see a segment with Lenny Wolff. We're going to be speaking with him, who's an advocate of Bob Avakian and the new communism. And he's going to be talking about the significance of Bob Avakian and his work and what difference that can make if it was known through all out of society. And so within this, we're going to be interspersing this whole live stream with video clips, with statements from people who are donating and contributing. And we're also going to show a teaser video from a moving discussion that took place between Lenny Wolff and a member of the National Revolution Tour and people within the movement about their personal journeys about becoming followers of Bob Avakian. And so, and to dedicating themselves to the struggle of human emancipation and the importance of why you should too. And so I really want to encourage people, stick around. Again, spread this live stream. And before we get into those segments, I wanted to read 3 statements from donors from across the country. And the first one is a statement from a high school student who gave $50, and he's reaching some of his friends to give. And so the statement says, "Right now is a time of existential dangers and profound possibilities. We need to seize the momentum, and make huge breakthroughs before the fascists come back stronger and harder. No one is going to make revolution for us. I'm donating as much as I can and contributing in other ways, because there is no more noble a cause than the movement for revolution." And this is another statement from a recently graduated college student and also a member of the Revolution Club, which says, "The urgency is real. The attack on Capitol Hill by fascists is not the worst of what could happen in the US. And we have seen the escalation from months to years ago. The forces that are necessary to counteract this act of domestic terrorism requires mass mobilization from the people and leadership. We have one. We have the leadership from the RevComs that has continuously warned us about the dangers of this fascist regime. They have called for mass mobilization. Today is an event to fundraise for this revolution, and we need your support. Everything that it requires, materials, pamphlets, banners, books, shirts, every single piece of material that we get out to the people is crucial, and it requires funds. People from all different backgrounds have donated, and their contribution is important. We have seen the Revolution Tour expand to different states. We have seen the growth of people mobilizing into the streets, but the fight is not over. The $5, $20, $50, $100 you donate makes all the difference. People are very willing to donate to causes that once it is out of their face, it is forgotten, but not this. You are now part of the revolutionary forces working towards mass mobilization. The donation is from the people, contributing directly to the emancipation of all of humanity. Although many of us are in need at this moment, the need for revolution, the need to counteract this fascist agenda, is an urgent matter. Not only must we fight for the revolution, we must also fund the revolution." And so I hear that we have Sunsara is backstage, right?
Yeah, but why don't you can read that next statement and then we'll bring her on.
Okay, I'm going to read one more statement and then we're going to bring Sunsara Taylor on. So this is a third statement from the generous donor that Annie Day introduced earlier of $3,000, which says, "I am happy to donate to the Get Organized for an Actual Revolution tour. We live in a time of dangerous and immense challenges. The events of the past week should make this starkly apparent to everyone, even to those who up to now have willfully attempted to close their eyes to this obvious truth. Yet within this situation, there is also opportunity, the chance to wrest a new future. To do this, there is an urgent need for the new communism, for the leadership and the scientific method of Bob Avakian to becoming a growing and contending force in the world. I am excited by the important steps the National Revolution Tour has taken to do this, putting revolution, a real revolution, that will completely overturn the brutal, outmoded system of capitalism and imperialism and begin building a new society free from all oppression and exploitation on the map. At this crucial time, nothing is more important. And I am glad for the opportunity to contribute to this effort as we enter a new year. I urge everyone who reads this to join in supporting this vital effort in whatever ways you can. So those are just 3 statements, and we're going to be posting more statements on the website revcom.us, but I did want to come back to the urgency that's spoken and the tone of those statements of now is the time for all of us who want to see that better future to act now. I really appreciated the fact that in the second statement from the college student, how she said, not only do we need to fight for revolution, we have to fund the revolution. And that is so true, because it connects with the urgency of the present situation. The fact that the whole world saw fascists storm the Capitol. People are asking, why is this happening? What do we do about it? What's our responsibility in this moment? And this is, quite frankly, the only movement that is giving concrete analysis in real time to understand what's happening and why. And Bob Avakian has been giving analysis about this fascist movement that has been growing for decades, an analysis that nobody else has done. And so we need funds to get this out there for more and more people to actually confront reality as it actually is and to progress society in a better direction and not the future that the fascists are taking this in, which have all the initiative. And for far too long, too many people have been sitting on the sidelines. Now is not the time to do that. Now is the time to go out and change that. That's what your funds are going to. I just wanted to say that, and I'll bring it over to Annie Day, and we're going to bring Sunsara Taylor on soon.
That's a perfect segue. I think Luna spoke to it well. And I just want to say, look, if you're like me, I've had people reach out to me, say, what the hell is happening that I haven't heard from in years, because people want answers. So if you're like me and you've heard from a bunch of people right now, before we bring Sunsara on, text those people and let them know if they want to hear answers to what the hell is going on, to tune into this live stream, and they can be given a way to act by making a contribution to have an impact. So I want to bring on Sunsara Taylor. Luna gave a good introduction. She is the co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show. She is on the East Coast. She's on the editorial board of Refuse Fascism, a follower of Bob Avakian. And we're going to talk to her about this current situation. There she is. Hi, Sunsara. We're so glad.
It's really good to see you guys.
Yes, we're so glad you can join us for this live stream, and we miss you here in LA.
I feel the same, and you look really great in the studio there. I miss sitting right where you are, Luna, but you're holding it down. It looks good. And I want to also, just before we even start, I just want to give my appreciation to everybody who's tuned in. As we'll talk about, everybody who has tuned in, we're going to go for a journey tonight, but I know a lot of you have actually made a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight possible. Some of you are past donors, and I just want to say thank you in advance, and I'm down to get started. What do you guys want to talk about?
So I want to start with this kind of current situation, and if you could just, we'll pull the lens back in a minute, but what's happening? How do you make sense of this for people?
Yeah, well, I think Luna put it well. And I think we have to start by, look, the whole world was shocked on Wednesday. We saw fascist mobs storming the U.S. Capitol, laying siege to it. We saw they constructed a hangman's noose. They had zip ties. They were going in very seriously to rain terror. And they could have done a lot worse, but they actually got way further than anybody ever should have been allowed to get in that. And this was in concert with Republican lawmakers who went in to overturn an election. I mean, almost 150 Congress people and 8 senators, even after this mob assaulted the Capitol, voted to overturn the election results of Biden, voted to illegally keep Trump in power. And Donald Trump instigated and incited and spearheaded all of this. For months, he's been talking about this. No electoral loss on his part is legitimate. It could only be fraud. The that he's refusing the peaceful transfer of power. He's telling his fascist thugs and the Proud Boys to stand by. He's been doing this for months. Nobody could say they didn't see it coming. And even that morning, he was directly on the scene directing it. So this was a fascist coup attempt, a fascist attempt to overturn an election in the service of implementing and more fully consolidating an outright fascist rule in this country. And people are talking, everybody was shocked, but people are summing this up in different ways. And we have to say it was fascism. And what does that mean? It means openly terroristic form of rule of this society, of this capitalist-imperialist society. It means the open white supremacy that was concentrated in that hangman's noose and that Confederate flag that was marching through the Capitol. It means the hatred of women, the misogyny, the hatred of LGBTQ people, which is a core of all of this, Proud Boys. It's the Christian fundamentalist and fascist core of many of these. It's the hatred and the hypermasculinity, the violent, conquering masculinity, and it's the hatred of immigrants and everybody and everything that's foreign, other countries, asshole countries, immigrants in cages. All of this is what these people glory in, and also within it is the outright assault on the truth, the facts, anything reality-based. These people, a lot of them actually believe that the election was stolen from them. They are so inside these conspiracy theories, this complete detachment from and resistance to the truth. This is a very dangerous movement. It went very far, and we have to see it for what it is. It's fascist, and it's not over. Some 73% of Republicans, or 40, I forget the numbers, a huge majority of Republican voters thought this was a just uprising, as they called it, in the Capitol. And Trump is still very powerful within the Republican Party. So this is not over. It was beaten back and didn't completely succeed. But this is a very profound and present danger.
I think that's important. And I think it might be helpful to understand this. I'm just thinking, should we wanted to play a clip from Bob Avakian on fascism and revolution. Do you want to play that here, Sunsara, or do you want to say something about it before because I think it'll help frame people, or help frame for people an understanding of what this is actually part of and what it comes out of and what we need.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll come back. I mean, either way we could do it, but I think it would be helpful. I mean, this is my understanding is we're going to play a clip from the speech. Why we need an actual revolution and how we can really make revolution. And it's a really foundational speech for all the work the tour is doing. And it's from that place of seeing the nature of this system that's given rise to this fascism, and that was a horror to begin with, that we are acting to make revolution, and we're taking up this battle against fascism. So let's listen to that, and then we can come back and talk about it in this current moment.
To come back then to the most fundamental point, all this is aiming for something very definite, a revolutionary situation. What we are doing now is making revolution. It is all part of and must be consciously and systematically carried out as an overall strategic plan and approach to getting to the point where millions can be brought forward to wage the all-out fight to overthrow this system with a real chance of winning. A great immediate challenge that bears heavily on the prospects for revolution is what is represented by the Trump-Pence regime. In another talk, the Trump-Pence regime must go. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. A better world is possible. I have spoken to how this is in fact a fascist regime, the basis on which it has risen to power in this country. How, so long as it remains in power, this regime will commit ever greater atrocities and poses a very real threat to the future and very existence of humanity through its assaults on the environment and its arsenals of nuclear annihilation. And why, in the name of humanity, it is necessary and how it is possible to force the removal of this regime through a massive, nonviolent, but sustained mobilization of people demanding that this regime must go. Here I'm going to speak to the relation between this and the fundamental goal of revolution. If this regime is able to further consolidate its power and more fully implement its horrific agenda, the prospects for revolution could then be greatly set back, and the conscious revolutionary forces decimated or completely destroyed, at least for a time. On the other hand, if a mass movement is built to drive out this regime, and if the revolutionaries work to build this movement from the perspective of how it relates to the revolution that is needed as the fundamental solution, then the situation in society and the world will become much more favorable for the fight against injustice and oppression, and crucial advances can be made toward the overthrow of the whole system. To a significant degree now, the conflict between the sections of society upholding this fascism and those opposing it from various different perspectives is shaping the terrain on which the struggle for revolution must be carried out. This conflict is likely to intensify and could erupt further in violent confrontation. And in any case, it would be a significant factor in the context of an all-out struggle between revolution and counter-revolution. The relation between the struggle against this fascist regime and building the revolution is not a straight road or a one-way street. It must not be approached by those who understand the need for revolution as if first we must build a mass movement to drive out this regime, and then we can turn our attention to working directly for revolution. No. It is crucial to unite and mobilize people from different perspectives very broadly around the demand that this regime must go. But it will be much more difficult to do this on the scale and with the determination that is required to meet this objective if there are not at the same time greater and greater numbers of people who have been brought forward around the understanding that it is necessary to put an end not only to this regime, but to the system out of whose deep and defining contradictions this regime has arisen. A system which by its very nature has imposed and will continue to impose horrific and completely unnecessary suffering on the masses of humanity until this system itself is abolished. And the more that people are brought forward to be consciously, actively working for a revolution, the growing strength and moral authority of this revolutionary force will in turn strengthen the resolve of growing numbers of people to drive out this fascist regime now in power, even as many will not be, and some will perhaps never be, won to revolution. So, both to meet the immediate challenge of creating a political situation in which this regime will be removed from power, and in which the political initiative has been seized to a great degree by those who are determined to turn back the assault on humanity that is being carried out by this regime and to strive for a better world, however they understand that, and to advance toward the fundamental goal of revolution, it is vitally important that all those who have come to understand the need for revolution actively contribute to building the movement to drive out this regime, and do so from the perspective and in the overall framework of building for revolution.
So, Sunsara, you're still with us?
I'm right here. I'm here. Okay, now I don't hear you. Okay. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. This is live. This is what happens when you're live. I can't tell what you're saying. But maybe I should just react to what I heard. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. All right. So hopefully I'll hear Annie and Luna in a moment, but I heard BA and I think right at the end of what he said we have to fight against this fascism. We have to take that responsibility and uniting everybody in society who can be united against this, and do that on the foundation of, and as we build and propagate and get organized for revolution. That is the mission of this tour. And I think it's to bring forward revolutionaries, to bring forward a movement for an actual revolution, to get as fast as we can, as close as we can to the time when this system can be overthrown. But as we've seen in vivid color in just this last week, and this has been something that BA has analyzed, as Luna spoke to, for decades. He's been seeing the antecedents and the buildup of a fascist America and the roots of that, what's driving that in this system. If we don't take up this fight against fascism and lead people to dislodge it, that's going to be a huge setback for humanity and for the revolution. It is our responsibility. It is the ground on which we're making revolution. And you can see it. One of the things that struck me in this past week, or since Wednesday, is you have, on the one hand, you have these outright fascists who are completely unrepentant. And then you had big calls right now in the halls of power among the Democrats for impeachment, for some kind of accountability. But already you have the gears of well, let's not go too fast. Maybe that will get in the way of Biden uniting the country. You see these mainstream imperialists trying to figure out how to hold their stability, their system together in the face of this fascist assault. And you have these two different futures within the imperialist framework contending. One that's much more horrific, of Trump and this fascism, but the other that is actually accommodating to it, and that has always been a nightmare for humanity, preceding Trump, and Biden is not an answer. BA has really been fighting for, and what the tour has been fighting for, is a third future, which is that of the emancipation of humanity, that can come about through an actual revolution. So were you entering into this struggle against this fascism from that standpoint and uniting with people very broadly to do that? I'd like to know if I can hear you yet.
Yeah, I think you can hear us.
Oh, beautiful. That's so much better. So, I think this point of there's three futures contending, and we are bringing forward the future of human emancipation up against both sides of what the rulers are are fighting out, and recognizing that they're not all the same. So there's quite I know we don't have much time. There's a few other things to say about this, but I think I'd like to hear where you want to take it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, let me just real quick. So we're up to $6,186 of our goal. And I have to do the math, but it's $200 toward meeting that match of the $3,000 contribution. So thank you for whoever gave. And please, while we're here, both contribute, but also call your friends and invite them to contribute. Sunsara did say, thank you for everyone who's part of it. It really matters. Again, and whatever you can give, it really matters, because you're stepping into something that is about meeting that third future. So Sunsara, I think it would be helpful if you could talk some about, well, what has the tour done in that regard to actually fight for that, to have an impact with that? This has been the speech that we just heard was given 2 years ago. And this has been the ground that we've been fighting to organize for revolution on. So I think it'd be good if you could talk some about that and give people some sense of that.
Yeah. So, there's actually a tremendous amount we've done. So in preparing, I was trying to come up with a few key things, because you can't just list everything. But we have been all over the country. We've been all over and a lot of different struggles ideologically with people's thinking, practically out in the streets. But I think, throughout this whole year, one of the things that has been the most standout is that BA has actually been making a very ongoing living analysis and writing, just an unbelievable amount of analysis, agitation, leadership, direction on this situation as it's developing. And so we've been taking a lot of his writing, we've been working with it ourselves, we've been taking it out to the neighborhoods, to intellectuals, to different arenas of society, to artists. And in particular, there's a number of things that he's written that are worth highlighting. But in particular, in August, he did a statement which was pretty historic, an August 1st statement on the immediate critical situation we face, the urgent need to drive out the Trump-Pence regime, voting in this election, and the fundamental need for revolution. And this was really a seminal analysis on the qualitative danger of the Trump-Pence regime consolidating, going into an election that they were already moving to steal, and a recognition on a very profound level of what it would mean if Trump was able to secure a second term. And he put forward, I won't be able to do it justice in a short, I'm going to just give a sense of what it was, but he put forward both the need for massive struggle throughout society, massive nonviolent struggle, as has been called for by Refuse Fascism, to drive out this regime, for people who are opposed to this to stand up, at the same time recognizing, and this was a big a living analysis of the situation we face, that in this election, because of the stakes, even though normally we don't participate in the bourgeois elections, they are bourgeois electoral bullshit. They do reinforce the system. In this election, there is so much at stake that actually the difference between the bourgeois candidates makes enough difference that people opposed to this should vote for Biden. And we took this up and we took it out. And this statement, we got it to just all over society, to artists, to journalists, to intellectuals. We took it to people among the oppressed in the neighborhoods. We took this out among people who were standing up in the struggles against police murder and in different ways in the streets. And we really fought for people to recognize this juncture. And almost every hour since this coup attempt on Wednesday, I have thought how prescient. I thought it going in too, but how prescient that analysis was. He made the point, you need a decisive electoral defeat, or if it's close, it'll be much easier for Trump to steal and stay in power legally or illegally. And you think if this had been any closer, you saw how deadly serious they were about overturning it, how much it has mattered that there was a big margin of defeat legally of Trump. And that was very prescient. And that was controversial, including among the left, who said, oh, well, this is the moment to go and pretend they're all the same and we're too sophisticated we get it's all the system. Well, this mattered. And at the same time, we're paying a price for the fact that people did not take up and answer the even more fundamental thing of people needing to be mobilized in the streets nonviolently to repudiate this. And that is a need that still cries out. So I think this statement and taking it out and then engaging with people on that basis and waging struggle and bringing forward resistance. I think this statement from BA on August 1st, other things that he wrote as well, his genocidal racist series about Donald Trump, but this had a big impact on a lot of thinking among a lot of people. And it is still a source of tremendous analysis and leadership that we've been taking up and spreading. So that's one of the dimensions I think is worth mentioning.
Just to add a whole long segment on this, but to expand on it much. But I think it's important too, just so people get a sense of what the tour is like. When that statement came out, we had a lot of discussion and struggle among ourselves that it was controversial, and then thinking about how to connect it up with people. I don't know how much time we have for it today, but Luna went and sat down with people from the neighborhood and kind of walked it through, read it out loud with people. We sent it all around and we unfortunately couldn't go to the campuses, but we sent it out to students, to professors, to all kinds of people, and did break open a lot of discussion and struggle about the contours that you're laying out. But, just to give a sense of kind of some of how we roll on the tour. And it's been a source of analysis, but it also a source of, and we'll talk more about this later, but a school of method. How do you understand a complex reality, and how do you understand whether and how there are pathways to change it? So that's just to add to what you're saying.
Yeah, it also, and then I'll bring in another example of what we've been doing. But that statement from BA also became a point of reference. Just last week I hosted a dialogue as part of the radio show that I do, but also the Revolution Nothing Less show. It was a joint broadcast, and we had a dialogue with Reverend Cornell West, whose church was assaulted by Proud Boys. We had Andy Z was part of that, who's the host of the RNL show and part of the tour, and Dr. Cornell West. And in that, one of the things that Cornell said is he cited how he had waged a lot of struggle with friends of his and other intellectual figures and public figures. And in his struggle over the fact that Trump actually is, as he would call him, a neo-fascist, I would call him a fascist. BA has called him a fascist. Cornell would wield that even Bob Avakian is saying there's a difference here and that we have to vote in this election. This became a point of reference much beyond that. And I think it actually had an impact on the thinking. And we should not underestimate. This is actually a big, horrible thing about the times. One of the things the tour is setting out to change. There is a big denigration in society for impacting the thinking of people. The battle in the realm of ideas and the battle over epistemology, the battle over thinking and understanding. And so I just want to say this understanding that BA put forward in that August 1st statement. And since he followed it up, because a lot of people then grabbed, well, we should vote for Biden. So he did another one. They were sliding over the we have to wage the struggle. He did another one a few weeks later. Voting is not enough. We need to take to the streets and stay in the streets, demanding Trump Pence out now. And so he's been continuing to work on this, and it has had a big effect. You're right. Struggle among us in the tour, but also among people of all strata. And it's impacted how they've understood, and then on that basis related to this moment. And there's much further to do, which is the second. There's two other things. I'm sure we're going to run out of time, so I'll try to be brief. But there's two other things I thought were important to bring in. And one of them is right where you're sitting. It's the RNL show, which again is working on and giving leadership to people. I went back before this and I looked at the titles of our episodes. And it really, all these people who said on Wednesday, well, who could have known? I never could have imagined fascists in the Capitol. Oh my God. This is something that we have been sounding the alarm on way ahead. We have episodes called Trump is not waging an election campaign. He is staging a rolling fascist coup. That is true. We saw that borne out. You go back and look at our titles. This has been providing analysis and leadership to people. 5 ways Trump is already stealing the election. The series from BA that was read by Noche Diaz, we put it out and it was spread in a form that was very popular. Donald Trump, Genocidal Racist, 10-part series from BA, because people hate Trump, but they don't understand the depth and the scope of what he means. And I know that in some of the struggles in the neighborhood in South Central, for example, at different points, we were getting out thousands of those. And people were coming out of their homes saying, I got part 3, I need part 1. They were trying to understand this. And it became a point of reference, and that makes a huge difference. So this show, the RNL show, what we've been bringing, and Andy Z has been having dialogues with people, Jason Stanley on the nature of fascism, a scholar who's written about this, some of the discussions that we've hosted just in the last week that have really given some, opened up and helped people look at what we're facing together from diverse viewpoints, as well as bringing the revolutionary core and understanding. So that's, there's a lot more we could say about the RNL show, but there's one other thing I want to bring in, which is, it's a huge thing, but I know we don't have much time, is we've really thrown in with the battle of refusefascism.org, the mission to drive out the Trump-Pence regime, to mobilize people and to unite all who can be united throughout society. And we've done that bringing in an understanding and of where this fascism comes from in this system of capitalism-imperialism, of taking on the individualism and the American chauvinism, but also having very broad arms and standing with people from different perspectives. So, when it became more and more clear that this was sharpening up, to give one example of some of what the funds that have been raised and need to be raised have gone to, myself and other members of the Revolution Tour, we jumped on a plane and we flew to DC. When RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, died, and Trump was gonna ram through, and did ram through, another Christian fascist judge to the Supreme Court. We went to DC and we spearheaded and anchored really the only consistent voice calling that out as part of this fascist coup and as part of the theocracy that's part of. But we also united very broadly, and we did civil disobedience about that. We broadcast that on the RNL show. We were sounding an alarm that had a big impact throughout society on this. We've been standing with people on the ground in DC and leading others to stand up at these previous MAGA overturn rallies in DC. We've been being there, but also across the country, uniting and moving with people to stand up against this. And that's a struggle that's ongoing. And there's an interpenetration between each of these, leading people to stand up and opening up the debate and the discussion and the dialogue that people need to get into to understand what they're up against and to be able to navigate it together with us. So these are some of the back and forth that we've been working on.
I think it's I've been thinking about you guys on the ground in DC at the Supreme Court, and it actually being, you were there uniting with people from all different perspectives who aren't revolutionaries, who aren't communists, who aren't, part of the revolution tour. It was people from all over. But from, how come you've been able to, and the whole revolution tour has been able to be so consistent in this, I think is actually a reflection of that fact that we're fighting for that third future, that there's a recognition there of the extreme dangers of fascism. And, like you said, Avakian's been sounding the alarm on this for decades, including the recognition of the danger of the Christian fascism. But also a recognition that you can't rely on the Democratic Party because they're a ruling class party of this same system. So I just think that's, it's actually is very much a part of a reflection of the fact that for there to be a different world, we both have to oppose this fascism and then be constantly pointing to the fact that this fascism comes out of a system that in its entirety has to be overthrown. It's been really important, the role that you, Andy Z, obviously taking leadership from Bob Avakian, have played in the struggle against fascism, and it's a part of the whole. It's part of the mission of the tour, in many ways. So I don't know if you want to say anything more about that. I do just want to say, because now we have this thermometer on the screen and it keeps going up. So this is pretty exciting. We've raised $7,881. So we're getting close, people, and we've got a whole other exciting segment to bring you. So, thank you for the donations. Keep them coming in. Keep reaching out. Sunsara, do you want to say more before we part ways?
I guess I'll just say one other thing, or one other comment, is that I really agree with what you just said about being able to see and looking beneath the surface. This is what BA continues to do, looking at what has given rise to this fascism. What is the nature of this system that is actually experiencing crisis on a major level that has brought this forward, and that is tying the hands, making the terms on which the Democrats oppose this fascism still the terms of the system that is not a system that is any good for humanity. It's a horror for humanity. So that part of what you're saying is very important. The other part that I think is really important to appreciate about what this tour brings and what BA has forged and what we're fighting to bring alive is actually hope for humanity on a scientific basis. It's the fact the world doesn't have to be this way. And it makes a profound difference. There's a relationship. This is at the end of what BA was talking about in that clip we just watched, about the more that there is a revolutionary force, not that everybody who fights fascism is going to become a revolutionary in the short term or maybe ever. He makes that point, and he's right about that. But the more that there is a force that has the complete implacable opposition to this system, the fascism, but also the terms of the system, and is fighting on different terms, the emancipation of humanity, something bigger than yourself. American lives are not more important than other people's lives, and lifting people's sights to that. It has brought a lot of strength. It's a big part of why we have stood up where a lot of other people have not been able to yet. And I actually think the more that the revolution grows, the more that's going to strengthen and lift people's sights to join in this fight against fascism, even as we have a lot of work to do to bring people together, again, from different perspectives. And I think we've seen quite a bit of that in embryonic form, even in the last week. And I think, and in the last months, where you have different public figures, intellectuals, artists. We had this, Refuse Fascism did this incredible press conference just less than 24 hours after this coup attempt that brought together Rosanna Arquette and Arturo O'Farrell and Cornell West and Reverend William Lamar, whose church in D.C. was attacked, Black church in D.C. attacked by these fascists. It brought together different voices to Jodie Sweetin to speak against this, and actually shows an embryo some of the breadth and the unity that we need to forge even further in the streets. There are millions and millions who do not like this direction. We saw them in their votes against Trump. But there's a struggle we're still waging, and I think this is actually the work of this tour. And it's the work, it's one of the dimensions of the work we're doing, and we have a lot to bring to it. And I'll just end by saying, that the ability to get on a plane and fly to DC, the ability to be able to send people into the sharpest concentration points of this fascism, to report live and broadcast that through the RNL show, to be able to have our materials through the tour in different neighborhoods that are bringing this understanding to people. And then for that to be amplified, for that to be scaled up, for us to put, ads behind that to get a bigger audience, it's so much what humanity needs. So I really want to, thank you guys for the time. Thank everybody for tuning in, and the support for this, the donation to this. There really is nothing that could be more important. And I ask that people give what you can, give all that you can, and spread the word about it, and join this struggle with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us, Sunsara. And just to echo your last point, please keep giving. I was thinking even just, what you said about the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. I watch a lot of different shows and podcasts and articles, and there is just nothing like the consistent, sharp analysis and call to action that's concentrated in this show, as well as the point you made about a very concrete and positive vision for the way the world could be, that's rooted in the real possibility for transformation, not pie in the sky, and not, but that takes funds. It takes cameras, it takes the studio, it takes lights, it takes, internet access, let alone advertising, and a real, being able to project that throughout society. So thank you for joining us. The total just went up to $8,131, and that really matters. And that's just a segment of the tens and tens of thousands of dollars that we aim to raise. So we're going to move to our next segment in a minute, but you wanted to, we're getting a lot of comments in. So
I did, again, thanks Sunsara Taylor for being a part of this. For all of you tuning in or just tuning in, y'all just heard from Sunsara Taylor, who's a follower of Bob Avakian, who's part of this National Revolution Tour, who's a co-initiator of Refuse Fascism. And people, tuning in should pledge a contribution, and remember to tune in on January 24th, Sunday. We're going to be having another live stream. But I did want to read some statements from people who have donated, who, as we see on this thermometer right here, is at $8,181, like Annie said. So our goal to $10,000. I hope to see that keep going up. But I wanted to read a statement from a Vietnam veteran who donated $100. And this statement says, "I am a Vietnam veteran. I was involved in the active duty GI movement against the war after I found out what the war was really about. I have some photos from the war on my home wall and in my phone. One is a 10-year-old girl running from a napalm attack with horrific burns all over her body. Napalm was introduced to the war by the US military. Other photos show villages being burned all over Vietnam by US troops. From the book, Kill Everything That Moves by Nick Turs. By the war's end, 3 million Vietnamese have been murdered by US forces. US chauvinism has a major factor in US troops regarding the Vietnamese as subhuman. Troops called massacres just gook business of no consequence. The American Crime Series, initiated by Bob Avakian on the revcom.us website, brings out the actual history of this country and its role in the world up to today and the terrible consequences of this. I am a disabled veteran, but I've decided to give $100 out of my stimulus check to the Revolution Tour because the tour is boldly going out among people, spreading the leadership of Bob Avakian everywhere. And they're organizing people into the revolution. They are the hope for a future with no more of these murderous, horrific wars. and no more oppression and exploitation anywhere in the world. This revolution tour is not half-stepping. Do you want to say something about that?
That's really powerful. And if people don't know the American Crime Series, go to revcom.us, go to youtube.com/the-revcoms, and you can see those videos. We got some very meaningful statements, many of which we're not going to be able to read, but they're going to all go up on revcom.us. And I just, again, there's so much, like what you were just describing, there's so much people are part of in this world that's horrific, that's degrading. When you step into the revolution, when you contribute, you are part of something that's changing the world for human emancipation. There's nothing more positive. You started with that statement on there's no more noble a cause than this. And I just, that's what gets given expression when all of us come together from different backgrounds, all over the country, standing with people all over the world. So I just think that really matters. I think for time, though, we should move to our next segment. Is that all right?
That's fine.
So in a minute, we're gonna bring in Lenny Wolff, and Lenny Wolff is an ardent advocate for the new communism. He's a follower of Bob Avakian. He plays a leading role on the National Revolution Tour. And we're gonna talk more deeply about Bob Avakian's work, about his leadership, why people should take that up and spread it throughout society, what difference it could make. To open this up, though, we're gonna play a 2-minute clip from Cornell West, from the panel that Sunsara actually spoke about. It was a panel that happened on Tuesday night, feels like a year ago, Tuesday night with Reverend Lamar, Cornell West, and Andy Z, moderated by Sunsara. If you haven't watched this, it provides such a deep grounding in what we're facing, but also a lot of the core ideological questions that have to be hashed out, battered around for there to be real change. So I encourage people to go watch that. But we're going to play this 2-minute clip, and then we'll go into our discussion with Lenny.
Brother Cornell West, I would love to bring your voice in here. How do you see, what do you want to add to this discussion so far on the danger and the moment that we're facing?
One, I just want to begin by saying how blessed I am to be in conversation with each and every one of you. I don't think that people fully understand the impact of those who are willing to be courageous and cut against the grain. The Revolutionary Communist Party, founded, led by my dear brother Bob Avakian. No matter what political and ideological differences I might have, my deep love for him and you all in terms of your focus on what my Bible calls the least of these. Mm-hmm. Franz Fanon called the wretched of the earth, their preciousness, their humanity, sitting at the center of the vision of the Revolutionary Communist Party in terms of your critique and resistance. And we wrestle with Brother Andy and my dear brother Carl Dix. I've been to jail many times. I go to jail anytime that brother wants to go to jail, along with Sunsara and Noche and the others. Brother Andy as well.
We will be there.
But I just wanted to just stop just for a moment for people to see what happens when someone catches on fire, falls in love with poor and working people like Brother Avakian, and never sells out, never sells his soul. It's consistent decade after decade after decade after decade, from the Black Panther Party to 2020. That's a rare thing. People need to take note of that. Young people need to acknowledge that. That's not something that you do by means of osmosis. You have to have fundamental commitment and dedication to the hell and suffering and social misery of poor and working people. And he has held up that bloodstained banner. So I want to just begin with that.
So I think that was a powerful segment from Cornell West and something to learn from. And Lenny will have more to say about it. But why don't you read this letter and then we'll go into it.
Yeah, I wanted to read part of a statement from a group of friends that was received today. And it's a group of 5 supporters of the tour in Chicago. And they've issued a match challenge for at least 5 people to make up to $1,000 in monthly sustainer donations over the next 6 months. And so they are asking from these 2 statements if people who are watching now can match this. And so one of the statements is a short one from a retired registered nurse. It says, "The Revolution Tour and the Rev Clubs, they are a part of shining examples of those who are putting into practice the principles of the new communism developed by BA, not only for those of us in the US, but also for all who came to revcom.us for the truth. It is essential that they have a consistent monthly financial base from which to operate to be able to quickly go to those hot spots, to be organizing forces for an actual revolution to overthrow this system. It is an honor to be a part of building networks of support for the Revolution Tour."
I think that's important. And again, you know, this is a lot of the work that we want to do all together between now and January 24th is build up those networks. So why don't you read this one from the letter from the prisoner, and then we're going to have our discussion with Lenny.
Yeah, so before our discussion with Lenny, there is an excerpt from a letter from a person that's in prison. And if people want to read the whole letter, it's up on revcom.us, and we really encourage people to do so because it's a very powerful letter. So it says, "I have been incarcerated for over 18 years. I was given 46 to life under California's draconian 3-strike law for a high-speed chase, which resulted in an injury. This unjust sentence further fueled my anger, hate, and frustration for a system who has dismissed Black and brown and even white lives as insignificant. And it further alienated me to a harmful criminal consciousness. I use the term criminal consciousness because as a criminal, I did have a consciousness. It was just misguided. It was based on anger and raw emotion for being followed, profiled, stopped, beaten, and harassed. As a young Black man, I was aware and conscious of what this country felt about me. So my consciousness was built and based on abuse and mistreatment. It just had an angry emotion and misguided actions attached to it. But revcom.us and Bob Avakian helped me turn my criminal consciousness to a revolutionary one. While not in any way condoning my criminal behavior and actions, they understood my energy and frustration. They told me that it could be redirected in a positive, revolutionary way. Initially, I thought they were crazy. I felt no one understood. So I challenged them with history, facts, and explanation that I hadn't heard before. They helped me see that my criminal consciousness could be turned around and used. Revcom.us and Bob Avakian are providing valuable lessons if people would pay attention. They are reaching people the world needs, but can't reach. Those of us in prison can and do have the ability to improve society. America sees a prison. Revcom.us and Bob Avakian see a university with many willing but misguided students. Looking at me and viewing me as a student instead of a criminal can bring out the best in me. It can further transform and reshape my negative, destructive, and harmful criminal ways to positive, productive, and meaningful action."
So like Luna said, you can read the whole thing on revcom.us. And why don't we bring Lenny in who can respond to that? And then I'm going to ask him some questions. Lenny, you with us?
More or less. I'm having trouble with my connection, but I've read the letter. I saw Cornell the other night. I didn't hear what you had in the middle. But the question is is that prisoner just one person? I mean, is there anybody else? Are there dozens of people like that locked away in the penitentiaries and in the mean streets of the cities? Are there hundreds of people, or are there actually millions of people who, if they could find a way out, they could find people who would struggle with them, as he describes being struggled with, to take that way out? Would it make a fundamental difference to them, but even more so to the society as a whole, and to what people thought was important? important, what they thought was worth sacrificing for. They see a way out. So I think that's what you, when you give money to, are giving money to. The ability to reach out, to reach further, to take the work of BA, which he's responding to, which Cornell was clearly responding to, and to take that to a much, much, much wider audience, and to give the backing to the people who are going out and fighting for that work, because it's a struggle. This goes against everything you're taught and everything that gets reinforced by this society, to calculate things from the standpoint of what's in it for me or mine, and to not proceed from the interests of the 7 billion people around the planet, and not approach things, including especially society, with a scientific approach, a scientific outlook, asking why and what do we do about it. So I think so again, I would connect that back to the need for people to very generously give funds. That's what that sparks in me.
So Lenny, let me ask you to, as a way to start, because I think it would be good to, we've said Bob Avakian's name a number of times, said a few things about him and his work, but I think it'd be good to start with a basic introduction of both, if you could speak to who is Bob Avakian and what's the significance of the work that he's done.
I think the best place, I really want to popularize this memoir of Bob Avakian, From Ike to Mao and Beyond, of how he came to do the work that he's done, what experiences shaped him, what changes did he go through as a teenager and then a young man, and then continuing changes throughout his entire life. You never stop growing, you never stop challenging, he never stops challenging himself. And there's another letter that is going to be going up on our website today from somebody who met BA, so to speak, in prison, not in person, but through the memoir. And he talks about how he was struck by the current system, but was talked way out. And he talks about his life growing up and then coming to change and encountering different people, like Black people, and seeing the way they were treated. And he wasn't coming at it like, well, how does this relate to me or whatever? It was like, this is really messed up and this has to stop. And he's confronted by the civil rights movement and people struggling and all these things. And it was something I had never encountered, as far as the morality and the willingness to just pursue the question, like, why is this the way it is? How could it actually be different? Or do we just have to get ourselves to things as they are? Do we have to give up? Is there really nothing we could do? If there was something we can do, how do we do it? So when I read the memoir, I was like, this dude is for real. I've known people growing up who were like, okay, I look out for my homies, I'll make any kind of sacrifice for them, my family. People have generally good hearts, but this was on a whole nother level. He's talking about a world of oppression. He's coming to confront that and how you get rid of that. And he went deep to understand the why, and who he is as a person and what he's contributed is very connected with that. This is a human being who's done this work, somebody with an immense 360 degrees of humanity, a huge heart. And that infuses this work. There's a scientific method at the heart of it. How to apply that method to understanding and changing the society that we live in. I was in a discussion with comrades on the tour the other day, part of which will be playing. But somebody said it's not just the answers, but it's the questions, the ability to ask questions that are productive, that are going to get you to the roots of things, that are going to get you underneath the surface phenomena. Even as the answers that he has brought forward are very, very important. The key thing is the method, the scientific method, and how he applies it and what he's unearthed that. Ways to ask the right questions. If you if you could approach this work in the right way, the ways to ask the right questions, to get to the heart of what we don't understand, figure things out. So there's a way out, and then there's a way out in another sense. This is, look, we uphold the revolutions that people have waged, the first stage of revolution, at first in the Soviet Union and then in China. But there were ways and there were times when those revolutions went off course in different ways. And with one manifestation of that would be to put what seemed in the short run expedient or necessary. It wasn't just expedient, but what seemed necessary. In the forefront of things in a way that that ended up being at odds with the goal of the communist revolution, which is get to a world of freely associating human beings where humanity can flourish. Humanity is unleashed in ways never before against the way so many are suffocated now with so much potential. And what BA did as who he is, and part of the work he's done is to bring forward a different epistemology, which is we always have to go to what's true, not what's useful necessarily, but first of all, what's true. What's the truth? Even truths that are very uncomfortable, truths that make us cringe, we need to confront that. And we can never fall into a view that the ends justify the means. And what he's brought forward in distinction to that always must be consistent with the ends we're striving for, the emancipatory ends that we are striving for. We have to forge that link all the time. And the foundation of that is the truth and the restless search for the truth and the scientific method to get to the truth. And there's a unity with the deep heart. And in the book, The New Communism, which I also have here, I'm not going to put it on the screen. But he talks about both the scientific method, the need to root ourselves in the scientific method, but coming from an orientation of for whom and for what. So I think that's that's a huge part of it. And then the other thing is when you give money to this, you are supporting. I can't emphasize it enough. People don't know about BA in this society. There is a core of people now who is, we've been the last several weeks, the last months, in addition to what Sunsara was talking about, people have been sharpening their understanding and preparing to go out and really wage a fight for people to become followers of BA, to take up this, which means to take up the science, and from the orientation I was talking about. And I think that there's nothing, I do want to come back to this. We need resources to do this. When you're supporting this, it's on you and in your power to enable millions of people to encounter BA and to enable hundreds and thousands in one form or another, be it through the RNL show or through people, one-to-one contact, like the example of Luna struggling with people in the neighborhood who would never be exposed to this kind of leadership had she not been there and had she not taken that August 1st statement and sat down and walked it through, defining every term for people and breaking things down with them and interrogating reality with them. That's what you're supporting with this when you give that donation. That's what makes it so very, very important for people to give the money to this. You're letting people meet this leader, and that is a key part of building up the way out, which is revolution. What BA stands for is revolution, nothing less. The people like Luna, people like the rest of us who go out, we have a T-shirt, BA Speaks, Revolution, Nothing Less. That captures it. So that's what you're supporting, and there's real content to that that's concentrated in this leader, concentrated in his work, and and that has to be fought for. Sure, the tour, the RevComs are always going to be fighting the power. The question is, the key link in fighting the power and transforming the people for a revolution, transforming the people. And the key link in that is proceeding from what we've got in the leadership of Bob Avakian. What a big, unimaginable plus is. There's never been a leader like this in this country. There's no other leader on this level doing this work anywhere in the world. This is a gift, and it's a very, very important responsibility. It's a responsibility for us, the tour. It's a responsibility for you who are watching this webinar and thinking about giving or thinking about going to others, which is even more important than winning them to give.
Thank you, Lenny. I think that, there's a lot in what you said for people to go back to and think about. And I really appreciate it. Luna and I had the chance to lead a discussion with some people around the Revolution Club on a recent article from Avakian, which people can read on RevCom, on conspiracy theories, liberal paralysis, or a scientific approach to changing reality. And in that article, BA makes the point about how much people are starting to recognize, this major coronavirus, we need science. And yet a profound inconsistency in applying that to the problem in human society, the source of the inequity, the source of such needless suffering. People do not apply science to this. And I just think it's really important what you're saying about people actually to take up a conscious approach to making a revolution. They have to have that scientific method. And it goes up against the fascist absolutism. Trump said it. I said that settles it. But it also goes up against the profound amount of relativism and individualism that marks so much of the progressive forces who actually do want a better world, but are locked into wrong modes of thinking and methods. And I just so that was one thing in what you said, and I think it really, really matters. And I do think we're going to bring in a couple videos that speak to this, but just the tremendous consistency with which BA has had the courage and the insistence that people look at all of reality, even if it's really uncomfortable or scary or unpleasant, because that's the only way we're going to be able to get free. So I appreciate that. I do want to say and give you a chance to make any closing remarks, but we've raised $8,481 while we're sitting here. And this really matters, people. What we're doing here can make a huge difference in the world. And it is a prelude to you kind of gave a little sense of it, Lenny, on some of what the tour's been doing of digging deeply into Avakian's work in this period. January 24th, when we do this next live stream, we're going to announce some big plans. So these next 2 weeks, people can learn from what Lenny just said, be able to go fight for that among others, to be able to actually make a leap even beyond what we're doing here today to raise more funds. So I want to thank you, Lenny, for being with us. Do you want to make any closing remarks?
Are you playing the
Oh yeah, you're going to intro it. We are playing the tape.
Okay.
So why don't you intro
I
it?
don't, unless you're... Well, I had a conversation with a couple of comrades on the tour the other day where they were talking about what it means to get into BA, and what it means to, what they've been getting and thinking about of late. And there's a lot of rich things that came out of that conversation, some of which are going to be going up on our website, revcom.us, in the next several weeks. One passage of this discussion we're going to play now. This is from somebody who has been on the tour. And I think it's important to ask yourself when you hear her discuss how she came to this and what it meant to her, to ask yourself again, how many people like this are out there who need to be reached? And what role can you, in giving support, in fighting for support, and doing whatever you can for this, role that you can play in making sure that people like Michelle, who you'll hear in a minute, are able to connect with this leader to get the chance to do that. Can make all the difference in their lives and in the lives of, really can make all the difference to the future. We don't know, we can't predict exactly what it's going to take, but we have to do everything we possibly can to reach everyone we possibly can and make the revolution that humanity so urgently needs. And again, it must be a conscious revolution, and it must be a revolution with heart. And it's those two things you do get in Bob Avakian in a very way.
Okay, thank you so much, Lenny, for being part of this with us. Let's go to that video excerpt of Michelle, and then we're gonna just stick with us for about another 20 minutes or so. So we've got $1,600 left to raise to meet our goal. Call your friends, ask them to give, and let's watch this this video clip that Lenny just introduced.
I was like completely ignorant to like communism or revolution, or even like, you know, kind of beginning to question things, you know, the fact that I was living in like, my family was the only Latino family in an all Black building. And like I had like all of my best friends, you know, growing up, you know, little kids were Black, you know, and like, and then you know, all these people that like, you know them personally, and you know that they're not like terrible people, and on a weekly basis you just see them getting handcuffed by the cops, and then they disappear for like a month, and then they're back in the streets, and you're like, hey, where you been? And they're like, jail, you know, and you like, you know that they're not, you know, terrible people, but like they're just always getting swept up, and then they're just kind of like, this is just, you know, this is just what we're used to, this is just the shit that, you know, we've kind of accepted, or we're just kind of, you know, that just happens to us, you know. And I remember like the first time that I watched the Revolution Nothing Less speech by Bob Avakian, the one thing that I remember that was really, that I laugh on now, but like I was sitting there and I'm watching him, and he's talking about like youth in like some of these communities, right? And he's talking about how like if there's 4 or more Black youth in a corner, you're considered like a gang, right? And I'm sitting there thinking like, how does this fool know about, you know, what happens in these communities, you know? Like you train your whole, like, I didn't grow up around any white people. Like the only white people that I was around were like teachers or like school administration and shit like that, you know? And then here's like a white person that's talking about these neighborhoods that like, kind of like the one that I grew up in, that I was still living in, right? And he's talking about like, and he began that speech very powerfully, you know, going through all of these Black people that have been and continue to be murdered by the police. And he like, and you can hear it in his voice, you know, like this is one of the one thing is every time I talk about BA, I get emotional, but like I wasn't like that back then. You get kind of like this idea of like, you're not supposed to cry, you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be strong or whatever. But sitting there watching him like walk through all these people that have been murdered by the police, all these stories of, I can't remember who he, you know, the story that he tells about, like, you know, this guy pulling out his keys and getting, you know, shot, you know, for pulling out his keys, and then their parents, you know, crying out, asking why, you know, why did they kill my son? And that like brought tears to my eyes, because one of the first things that I felt really like painful was when when somebody showed me Revolution newspaper with the image of Trayvon Martin in the front of it, and he was 1 year younger than me when he was chased down in the street and murdered, you know, and it hurt me so much. And I didn't know him, but to learn that this is the fucking normal thing, you know, that in the history of this country, Black people were never considered human beings. They were lynched, they were persecuted, they were fucking murdered. And even after, you know, slavery and segregation and all of that, you still have a 17-year-old that was going home and was chased down and murdered because of the color of his skin, you know? And like, and here's somebody who's actually talking about that with a lot of anger, and I think what Joe's saying, a lot of passion, but more than that, like, how the fuck are we actually going to put an end to this? And that there is actually a way that we can end this, that we don't have to live this way, you know? And just kind of like hearing, you know, a lot of people's, you know, how people kind of, you know, came to, you know, learn about BA, that the unfortunate thing is, you know, I guess unfortunate, but like you're living in a situation where like you're put in these positions, right? Whether it's in jail, whether it's growing up and seeing people that you love, that are your neighbors, that are your friends, that are getting fucked with, that are being put in jail, that are dying, that you're questioning, like, why is that, you know? And if you just go with this idea that because of your experience or because of your identity that nobody else that doesn't experience that can't tell you anything, then you're just gonna like, this is just gonna fucking continue to happen, you know? I can't say for myself, like when I was beginning to question all of these things, like I didn't know where to go for answers. I didn't even know that you can actually, that there is a possibility that you can do away with all of this shit and that you can get to a world where Black people are actually considered human beings, you know? Like something so fucking basic that you think as like a decent human being with a heart, that this should just be a given, but it's fucking not, you know? And that there actually is a way that you can both understand, again, not just in the surface of things, but the deeper dynamics of that, you know, and actually play a role in like both, you know, breaking this shit open in society where people are questioning all this. Just even thinking like, again, this is just my story, like just one person, but it's not unique. There's so many people that just go through all of this, you know, they're questioning this and like, and are being told that they should not listen to a white person because they haven't experienced this. Like I felt quite the fucking opposite. Like, goddamn, there's a white person that actually feels more fucking outraged than I did at that point, that's actually talking about how are we going to put an end to this?
Well, she put it very well. And including this point she just made about I'm one person, but not that unique. So, you know, we have the joy of knowing Michelle as a person, but you know, there's really are thousands and millions of people like this all over the world that we have to go reach and bring forward and bring into the revolution. So that was an excerpt. Lenny just a few days ago had a discussion with several people that are both on the National Revolution Tour and a part of the movement for revolution. And it was a really deep and moving dialogue about how they became followers of Bob Avakian, what they learned from him as a leader, including on the question of method, but also why you should be a follower of Bob Avakian too. And you know, talking about the changes they went through and the changes we have to go struggle with millions of people to confront and transform in their thinking, to step into and be part of a fighting force to bring a whole new world into being. So we are $960 $959 away from meeting our goal for the day. And we've got about 10 more minutes together. If we can meet that goal, fantastic. I know that there's some pledges that have come in that we haven't counted until we receive the funds. And then, so we'll keep people posted. But it'd be great if we could meet that goal by the end of today. And, we want people, there's a phone number and an email on the bottom of your screen. And we want people to write us like tonight, tomorrow, with your ideas on how we can be part of building for this next live stream. We don't have the goal set yet, but it's going to be big because we've got big plans to really just wail to impact all of society in a big way with revolution, with Bob Avakian's work, with a big challenge to society to get up out of all the bullshit that you're into and fight for a better world. So we want to hear people's ideas, fundraising ideas, the arguments you think we need to make, the arguments you want help in making. If you want to pull some friends together and you think that they really need to hear about this, but you don't really know how to ask them, call us for advice, or maybe pull them together, and me or Luna and maybe, other people on the tour could get in on a Zoom call with you and make the pitch to your friends, and we can do it together. But this next 2 weeks, like we said, it's going to be really wild and intense and volatile. And it's all the more reason that we need to get out there with this Revolution Tour and raise funds. Luna.
I think that's important. We were going to play 2 videos from donors, but I did want to read a short statement really quickly from a donor, someone who has been sustaining the tour and donated $600, their whole stimulus check today. And so they say, I am donating the full amount of my stimulus check. There is nothing that needs stimulating more than the latent revolutionary energy of millions fighting for a beautiful world worth living in. I have had the privilege of meeting numbers of members from the Revolution Club. They are some of the most inspiring and wonderful people I have ever met, both for their tireless efforts fighting for a bright future and in the way they as individuals represent that future and how they carry themselves and relate to others. There is no better cause anyone can donate their money to. I just want to underscore the importance of this small statement, the fact that this person donated all of their stimulus check. And I want to say for all of you tuning in, you should donate your stimulus check too. All of what's, all of the clip we just saw from Michelle and the fact that this person has met people from the Revolution Club and is given hope by meeting people who are taking up the leadership of Bob Avakian and just bringing it back to even what Sunsara was saying, what's going to inspire people and give people real hope for humanity in this intense, volatile situation, which so many people are just, either ignoring or looking at and getting overwhelmed by, because it is overwhelming. It is chaos and confusion, and it's unnecessary that you have in this time white supremacists going and terrorizing people. That should not stand. Meanwhile, you have the situation that Michelle described with Black and brown people got a target on their backs, can't even survive under this system. What kind of ridiculous notion is that? And the fact that it doesn't have to be this way. And, all of everything that has been, in this live stream, all of the people who are coming forward and actually making the case should be taken to heart. And for the people who have donated, donate again. If you donated, and if you know somebody who saw what happened and who cares about the state of the world, go call them up right now. Send them a text. Tell them to give $5, $1. All of that goes to, the kind of conversations that we're having right now, not just in the abstract or just between each other, but going out and debating and struggling together, not in a sectarian way, but in a way that has our arms around our shoulders and arms around each other, because it does matter how, I think that point around the means justify the ends, how we treat each other and the points of attention for the revolution, which people can go look at revcom.us. That's not just modeling that and modeling that for people right now who you see all the degrading shit that people are caught up in and people relating to each other in a different way, treating people as people, is infused within all of this movement, and it has been given light because it's being led by a person who has that same kind of heart and that same kind of, science packed into that. It is that rare combination. I won't go on, but
I think that's really important. And I think there's two things I would say about that. One, for those people to be supported that you're describing, that takes funds, right? For the Revolution Tour, for the people who are, people are living together, people are struggling together, people are on the front lines a lot, right now trying to figure out the difficulties of doing it in a time of COVID, but need to be supported. Again, that's internet fees, that's food, that's housing. There's people like Michelle, people like yourself, who this is like what your whole life is about. That's such a precious thing, and it needs to be multiplied. But for you to go multiply that, you need support. The tour volunteers need support. And the second thing, I just really appreciated the point Michelle made at the end, where she was talking about, actually, Avakian was even, when she heard BA speak, he was actually angrier than she was about the conditions that she was surrounded by. And it's because you have a scientific understanding that that's just needless. And how many people, who actually do care, who have a heart, but they've gotten used to it. They think this is just how things have to be, right? And they're just, so you throw your hands up, or you get cynical, or you were talking with a friend the other day, you get nihilistic, right? Who just say, fuck it. But actually, even that's not permanent. And they can change their thinking if they're able to meet the revolutionary leader that we have in Bob Avakian, if they're able to meet the Revolution Tour of people who are going to fight to make that a material force. So I think what you said is really important, and I want people to continue to think about that. We're moving toward our last part here. So keep the donations coming in, keep spreading this, and save the date, January 24th. We're going to do this big live stream and really want to have a mass campaign between now and then to raise even more funds. Why don't we go into these? We're going to play two back-to-back 2-minute each video clips from people who each contributed to this live stream today and are telling you why you should contribute too.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sochi from Bay Area Revolution Club. This is a call out for you to give money, for you to help keep the work of the Revolution Tour going. These are people of all ages and nationalities who quit their jobs and in some cases moved around the country to dedicate their lives to bringing the science of revolution to the masses of people, to organizing against a fascist nightmare. We just saw that attempted coup, and also bringing people an understanding of how to see the world, how to look at the world from a framework that tells you what's actually happening, what's true, what's evidence-based. And that's because they have the leadership of Bob Avakian, leader of the Revolutionary Communist Party and architect of the new communism. And why that's so important right now is because if you look in the world, if you look in this country, you see people who are using alternative facts and alternative ideas. They are using frameworks to understand the world that have nothing to do with material reality. And that's happening not just on the right from the fascists, but even on the left. People are espousing ideologies and outlooks like identity politics that start from people's identity versus starting from material reality. Why that's important, and why that leadership is important, and why the work of the Revolution Club is important is because if we do not understand the world as it actually is, we will not be able to change it. We will be flung about, in the words of Bob Avakian, by all the different pushes and pulls that are happening, and not be able to liberate humanity. What Bob Avakian and the Revolution Club and the Revolution Tour is saying is that there is a potential in this country, in this world, to transform all of humanity. It doesn't have to be this way, and we have leadership, we have science in order to do that. And that's why you need to give money. You need to keep this going. You need to give $100, at $500, 1,000, 50, whatever you have, so we can keep this tour afoot and do the work that's needed right now.
I've been a communist for 13 years, and I only recently got involved with the RevComs. And I'm going to make the case as to why you should support the work of the Revolution Tour and look deeper into their method, analysis, and strategy. And I think the best way to do that is to look at their position on the Trump-Pence regime in the election in the wake of the coup attempt at the Capitol. The Revcoms, back in 2016, took the position that Trump and Pence are fascists who needed to be removed from power immediately. And they led the initiative to form the Refuse Fascism Coalition as a mass nonviolent street movement, a movement that's been building in the streets for 4 years, demanding Trump-Pence out now. The Revcoms also advocated voting for Biden as one component of the necessary struggle to remove Trump and Pence, in contrast to other socialist groups that insisted there was no meaningful difference between them. I want you to ask yourself, after everything you've seen, why were they right? And my answer is their method, analysis, and strategy that was developed by their revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian. Fundraising is needed to conduct their revolution tour. It's necessary work to engage the most marginalized and oppressed communities in our society, because those are the people who have the most to gain from a revolution, and they're the heart of the movement. You can see an example of the work they do in episode 17 of the RNL show, around the 1 hour or 8 minute mark, when Noche Diaz described their time in the south side of Chicago, talking about revolution with people whose conditions include life and death struggles over street corners. You can donate on Venmo to @RevolutionTour and via their website, revcom.us. Subscribe to their YouTube channel, youtube.com/therevcoms, and click the notification bell. Follow @therevcoms on Twitter and Facebook, and make sure to tune into their fundraiser on YouTube Sunday, January 10th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
So I think those are a pretty good sense of the different voices that are stepping in, that are contributing, people like yourself. So we're $9,326. We obviously met and exceeded the $3,000 match. So that really matters. And I think we're in pretty good stead to go hit the ground running for this next 2 weeks, to build for this next live stream. Just two things. So while we were sitting here, we heard that someone right after we played that video from Michelle gave a $150 donation inspired by her video. So that really matters. And, again, like, there's a lot of people out there that we have to reach, like Michelle. And I wanted to read a statement from a part-time immigration attorney. And just to give a sense of the breadth of voices, they said, "I will donate because I know enough about Bob Avakian to agree with the diagnosis. But at this point, I don't know all about his critical thinking as to what to supplant the system with. I want to give because I want to raise consciousness, and I don't want people to lose hope. I want people to know the world doesn't have to be this way, that there's a better way, that they're not consigned to the system of capitalism." And, I think we should go struggle like hell with people to step into the revolution, to become followers of Bob Avakian. But even if you aren't, and you're not sure of what all you think of all of the answers there, or the question of being consistently scientific, if you communists or atheists, if you're somebody who still holds on to a religious faith, you have a role to play still in both struggling all that through to fight for what you think is right and needed, but also to contribute to this revolution, because it needs to be out there. Even if, again, you're in a process of figuring out what you all think of this, there has to be a big societal debate over reform versus revolution, over why you need leadership, the character and content of Avakian's work. And again, I would commend people to watch that panel from Tuesday night, and you just get like a tiny taste of the kind of debate that can open up in society if people were genuinely digging into Avakian's work, what that can change. And again, that was a dialogue among people who don't all agree. Obviously, Cornell said that in his comments here, but who appreciate there's just a tremendous amount of work that he's done to analyzing why we're in the situation we're in and how to get out of it. And then what you and Lenny were talking about, that unity of heart and science. That's pretty rare in the world right now. There really is nothing and nobody that concentrates that, and then this movement is infused with that. So this is what you're supporting when you give to the Revolution Tour. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've raised $9,561. That's very exciting.
Yes, that is very exciting. And I mean, it would be good if we could do the rest of that by the end. Like, somebody donate $500 or call 10 of your friends, donate $50. I wanted to read a portion of a statement which I thought was very powerful in terms of what it's laying out. And they say, hello, Revolution Club members and supporters. Now, it's not just a matter of supporting people who can physically go to protest when you can't. It is a matter of supporting people who can project revolutionary ideology to people whom you will never see. People not just in this country, but around the world who are all watching and supporting them, reaching every sphere of society. And they say, right now, financially, I can only do $5 a month. So I will do that until conditions change. But perhaps someone might be so moved by my statement so as to offer $5 themselves. And so I thought that was really important to capture that, you know, bringing revolutionary ideology, like bringing the tools of a scientific method and approach to people whom you will never see. You know, I really think that that really resonated with me, because that is what this is about. You know, the emancipation of all of humanity. This is about the people whom you will never see and maybe never meet. But the fact is, those are our people too, and we have the responsibility to them. We have the responsibility for all those children in those concentration camps who we all saw, you know, and were agonized about, sitting in those cages, treated like animals. We have a responsibility to bring into a world where no child is put in a cage, but children are allowed to grow up in a world without that fear. You know, that is what this is about. And it's not only about just, you know, it's about also enabling people whom you will never see, whom you would never think, you know, have a college education, have an elementary school education, enable them to take up the tools themselves to go on and emancipate themselves and emancipate humanity, you know, because everyone can take this up. This is why we have Basics, the Handbook for Revolution. People can go and read that on revcom.us. That breaks down the complicated, you know, and simplifies it for all kinds of people to understand, whether you're a youth in South Central, or whether you're a college student from Berkeley, whether you're a psychologist or an immigrant lawyer. You know, anyone can understand this. But where you start and what you do now matters. And it matters that you step in at whatever level that you're at, you know, which means a donation, which means spreading the word, which means contributing to the people who are dedicating their lives to this. There needs to be more people who dedicate their lives to this, to the emancipation of all of humanity and the struggle for revolution. There needs to be more Michelles. There needs to be more, you know, to be honest, there needs to be more people like that. I mean, and there are people like that out there. But it actually it requires struggle. It requires more people stepping in all the ways that they can. And that one really struck me, because it is about the people who you will never see. It's not about ourselves. And it's not about, as another statement said, about the fame or the self-aggrandizement, which so many people are so obsessed with. This is about humanity and putting humanity first. So I thought, you know, and it's important that this person is saying they can only do $5 a month. That matters too. You know, you could do $5 a month, and we're at $9,961. So we have
$39.
$39. I think we can raise the $39.
Luna's like, we're not going to let you
go. In the
go.
next 5 minutes.
We're not going to let you go.
We're not going to let you go.
Okay, no, we are though, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I'm trying.
Okay. But that's pretty fantastic. So look, we're very close. I think there's some pledges that have come in that we're not putting down the numbers yet, but that will get us over the edge. We'll put the results on revcom.us. We want to thank everybody who's contributed. And I just thought your last points were really important too, and people should think about that and take the challenge. And the point from the donor of giving $5 a month, like that's not insignificant. If that's what you can give it. And then work with us together to go find 5 other people to also do that, to match what you give. Again, I said this earlier, but these are the networks. This is how you get, people always want to know, well, how are you going to organize this? Well, the strategy for revolution is complex, and Avakian's done a lot of work on it, but a big part of it is organizing for revolution. And these networks, this is part of how you're getting organized, where people are concretely contributing, where you're building networks that way on the basis of people stepping in the ways you were describing and the ways Lenny was describing. Fight the power, but pivotally transform the people for revolution. So anyways, I'm echoing that statement. So look, I think we're,
yeah.
So we made it over $10,021. Thank you, people who just contributed. You made Luna very, very happy, but not just to make her happy. It's because it really matters. So this is, look, we're in a good stead, like I said, to hit the ground running for this next 2 weeks. Tune in on January 24th. You're going to hear the big plans that the Revolution Tour has to just impact all society with revolution, with Avakian's work, with the new communism. Write to us. We're going to get organized to raise big, big, big funds. It's not just that we have to fight for revolution. As that statement said, we have to fund the revolution. So thank you. Thank you to all the donors who contributed funds. Thank you to all the people who made these powerful, beautiful statements today with your heart and your minds and your words. You know, by giving today, you're stepping into the revolution. You're stepping into something very positive that is really about the world and about the people of the world. Someone who donated earlier says, oh, in addition, I'm pledging $400. My donation totals my stimulus check. Thank you for the great show and the critical work. So thank you for whoever that came from. You know, tune in January 24th, be part of building for it.
Yeah.
Let's go, people. Go to revcom.us every day, because there's going to be a wild times and a lot to understand and go fight for. So, all right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Again, share this live stream. It'll be up and tune in the 24th.
All right, later.
Bye.